Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this memorial service for Pete Vogt. We have come to set aside our own lives to mourn and remember Pete. We have gathered here in a beloved community to celebrate his life well lived. We've come from various lives to honor the life of a beautiful and beloved being. The passing of a life always reminds us to live life more fully, for with death shadows upon us, there is an imperative to live more fully, more kindly, and more graciously. While Pete has passed beyond this mortal world into the realm of the spirit, his goodness, his essence lives on in those who cherished him. And because Pete loved poetry and music, we have made sure to include some of his favorites in this service meant to honor and celebrate him. It is our custom as Unitarian Universalists to light our chalice, which is the symbol of our faith. The light from this flame points to the truth of love that rests in our hearts. I will read Blessing for the Brokenhearted, and after which we will light the chalice. Let us agree for now that we will not say the breaking makes us stronger, or that it's better to have this pain than to have done without love. Let us promise we will not tell ourselves that time will heal the wound when every day our waking opens it anew. Perhaps for now, it can be enough to simply marvel at the mystery of how a heart so broken can go on beating as if it were made for precisely this, as if it knows the only cure for love is more of it, as if it sees the heart's sole remedy for breaking is to love still, as if it trusts that its own persistent pulse is the rhythm of a blessing we cannot begin to fathom, but will save us nonetheless. Henry David Thoreau. This piece here was read, as I understand, was shared during the wedding of Marty and Pete. Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediments. Love is not love which alters when it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever-fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth is unknown, although his height be taken. Love is not time's fool, although rosy cheeks and lips within the bend sickle's compass come. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but it bears it out even to the edge of doom. If this be error, and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved. Sonnet 116, William Shakespeare.
Try now.
Practice speaking Spanish with each other. So Marty asked me to sing this piece that was Pete's go-to request from the mariachis, Cuando Calienta el Sol. Cuando calienta el sol aquí en la playa, siento tu cuerpo vibrar cerca de mí. Es tu palpitar, es tu cara, es tu pelo, son tus besos, me estremezco. Cuando calienta el sol aquí en la playa, siento tu cuerpo vibrar cerca de mí. Es tu palpitar, tu recuerdo, mi locura, mi delirio, me estremezco. Cuando calienta el sol. Love me with all of your heart, that's all I want, love. Love me with all of your heart, or not at all. Just promise me this, that you'll give me all your kisses every summer, every winter, every fall. Love me with all of your heart, that's all I want, love. Love me with all of your heart as I love you. Don't give me your love for a moment or an hour. Love me always as you loved me from the start, with every beat of your heart. Cuando calienta el sol. Thank you, Danny.
Pete studied and respected Buddhist practices. And so as you remember, as you grieve, and as you celebrate Pete, I want to share with you this loving kindness meditation that you may want to practice when you are on your own and you're thinking of Pete. So loving kindness meditation, which is also known as metta meditation, is a Buddhist practice that cultivates feelings of love, kindness, and compassion for oneself and for others. The aim is to reduce negative emotion and increase positive ones. So we're gonna do a little practice of loving kindness using 3 different phrases, and then we will start with I, and then you, and then we. So the phrases are, may I be well, may I be comforted, may I find joy in my memories of Pete. Okay, so we'll start, and I'll just show you. It's very simple. So if you could sit as comfortably as you can, and as you do this, bring some memories of Pete to mind. And so it's, may I be well, may I be comforted, may I find joy in my memories of Pete. So let's do it together now. We'll start with I again, and then we'll go to you, and then we'll go to we, and then we'll go back to I. Okay? May I be well. May I be comforted. May I find joy in my memories of Pete. May you be well. May you be comforted. May you find joy in your memories of Pete. May we be well. May we be comforted. May we find joy in our memories of Pete. And then now we return to ourselves again. May I be well. May I be comforted. May I find joy in my memories of Pete. The hope is that, and I know I spoke with Marty about this, is that maybe this and doing something that was so meaningful for Pete, you may also find comfort when you think of him and this loss.
Maybe I didn't love you quite as often as I could have. Maybe I didn't treat you quite as good as I should have. If I made you feel second best, oh, I'm sorry I was blind. You were always on my mind. You were always on my mind. And maybe I didn't hold you all those lonely, lonely times. And I guess I never told you I'm so happy that you're mine. Little things I should have said and done, I just never took the time. But you were always on my mind. You were always on my mind. Tell me that your sweet love hasn't died. Give me one more chance to keep you satisfied, to keep you satisfied. Little things I should have said and done, I just never took the time. But you were always on my mind. You were always on my mind. You were always on my mind. You were always on my mind.
Well, as we all know, Pete had a very full life, so put on your roller skates. Here goes. George Adolph Vogt, Jr., better known as Pete, was born on August 18, 1944 in Wauchula, Florida. His father was in the Air Force, so they spent their early years in Tucson, Denver, Roswell, and Savannah. But most summers found Pete visiting his grandmother, Annabelle Mathis, back in Wauchula. It was she who nurtured his strong connection to the Florida landscape and history and sparked an early interest of his in politics. Pete's roots were firmly planted among the southern palmetto hammocks and swamps. He was a true Florida native. His high school years were at the brand new Oak Ridge High School, class of 1962, and one of his classmates, Linda Osborne, would become his wife. Pete attended the University of South Florida and majored in economics. He remembered engrossing late-night discussions about the civil rights movement and other issues roiling the country during the 1960s. Linda also attended USF, and they married on August 21st, 1965. Upon graduation the following year, he joined the U.S. Army, as he believed military service was his responsibility as an American citizen. He was accepted into the Army Officer Candidate School, commissioned as a second lieutenant. And to his relief and delight, he was stationed in Stuttgart, Germany, where he was able at times to travel to France and other parts of Europe. Linda joined him, and their son Eric was born in Germany in 1968. After returning home to Orlando, Pete joined the George A. Vogt Realty. This was his father's firm in Belle Isle, and it proved to be the right fit for him. Pete excelled in building client relationships, and he shared an endless supply of jokes, as you all know, and maintained connections with past clients. He joined the Orlando Regional Realtors Association and served on its board from 1970 until 2010. He joked that he started as the youngest member of that board, and 40 years later, he was its oldest. Pete devoted time to Democratic Party politics. He worked in scores of local, state, and national campaigns. He was deeply committed to women's and minority rights. His extensive civic engagement saw him serving on numerous boards, including the Manello Museum of American Art, the Guardian Care Nursing Home, the Tiger Bay Club, Orange Audubon Society, and the First Unitarian Church of Orlando. He was an intellectual to his core. He was insatiably curious, and he was a voracious reader. Any week for him was incomplete without a trip to the bookstore. His home, as many of you know, overflows with books on an incredible range of topics and people. A favorite author was Marcel Proust. Pete maintained that reading Proust had changed his life. He quoted him endlessly to anyone who would listen. Pete often also audited classes at UCF and Rollins, adding Shakespeare and fencing, among other subjects, to his continuing study of the Spanish language. His curiosity about the world led him to travel extensively. Mexico, Central America, and South America were his favorite destinations. He scaled mountains, he trekked the Amazon, he hitchhiked, he met people and learned about their cultures every chance he got. While he sometimes traveled alone, many of his most memorable adventures were shared with friends with whom he forged lifelong relationships. After Linda's death from breast cancer in 2006, a mutual friend connected him with Martha Haney. And there's some disagreement as to who called whom. But after several tentative starts, Pete and Marty decided to share their lives. So over the next 19 years, they indulged together their love of reading, cooking, theater, concerts, politics, traveling, and being with their friends. They got married on December 21st, 2017. Their adventures have ranged from the mountains of Mexico to the streets of Paris, the jungles of Ecuador. Pete's diagnosis of Parkinson's disease gradually slowed them down, and the COVID epidemic finally brought them home to Belle Isle to stay. Pete led a rich and full life surrounded by dear and loyal friends, and many of you are here today. I am so lucky to have known this incredibly smart man and so moral. He was a very good friend. Well, let's end where Pete would begin, with a quote from Marcel Proust. "We don't receive wisdom, we must discover it in ourselves. After a journey that no one can take for us and no one can spare us." Thank you, Pete.
Native American author Thomas King surmises that all we are stories. And that's even more so once we have passed on to another realm, because we become the stories that people tell about us. And in that vein, I now invite the following people in the order named to come forward and share their stories or memories of Pete. George Vogt III, grandson. Woody Owen, who was a friend. John Page, also a friend. Alzo Reddick, friend. And Dick Batchelor.
Good afternoon. Oh, excuse me. Thank you, everybody, for coming here to honor Pete, my grandfather. I apologize. My grandfather was generally a very stoic man. And very German, not to be redundant. I'm off to a poor start, but I'll do my best. You don't smoke, do you? Not on any drugs? You're still in school, right? It's good. It's good. 95% of my conversations with my grandfather started this way. And oftentimes they ended that way before I would leave. While most of you know Pete as a friend, and as Pete, I have the unique knowledge of everyone in this room to know him as Grandpa. Those of you who know my history know often I'm embarrassed of it. However, when I think back on my grandparents and on Pete, I am deeply proud, and I often smile. Pete largely influenced and shaped who I am today. He is bar none one of the smartest men and the best example of a man I ever had in my life growing up. A decorated soldier, a loving husband, a hard worker, a world traveler, an active member of the community, and a protector of nature. In my eyes, there is nothing that Pete couldn't do or didn't know. He taught me the importance of hard work, of respect, concern, to appreciate nature, to honor my family, and to pursue knowledge always. My earliest memories of Pete, of him and my grandmother taking me to science fairs, bird watching as a proud member of the Audubon Society, reading newspapers, though I mostly read the comics, museums, trying new foods like Colcavan before they closed, and so much more. He taught me the importance of taking care of things and the importance of timeliness. He would show my sister and I his garden, and we helped maintain the lakefront in front of the house. As I grew older, we talked politics, world news, religion, tales of our travels over a pipe or a cigar, even though he had much more to say as his travels vastly outnumber mine. Oftentimes, I think my grandfather and I bonded over the things we never talked about. We shared a hurt when we were often too proud to admit it. I lost a father I never knew, and he lost a son he wished he knew more. I say Pete shaped who I am because deep inside, we were each other's second chance. He lost his first wife and me, a grandmother. For us at that time, the best friend we'd ever known. Thankfully and wonderfully, Pete met another soul who would become his best friend, and I'm grateful that he did, and that he had someone there in the end. I miss my grandparents, and I miss Pete. Like most of you, he was one of my oldest friends. I could talk for hours on our adventures and the things we did, but I'll close with this for now. As an annual tradition, we would go see the Nutcracker on ballet. And my grandparents gave me a new suit jacket and a clip-on tie. And I wanted a watch to match Pete. It was a Timex, I believe, which my grandmother pointed out that it lit up and Pete's did not. I say that as I now wear Pete's watch, which to no one's surprise runs perfectly, was well maintained, and barely needed any tune-up. This watch serves as a reminder to me to take time out to travel, to sit outside, to enjoy a cigar, to watch the birds, relax with a loved one, and appreciate life, something I believe my grandfather would remind us all to do.
George, that was very heartfelt. Beautiful. Marty, I just want to tell you how much I really appreciate your heartfelt vigilance, faithfulness, and honoring Pete the last few years. Just tribute well done. And John and Mark and a number of us just witnessed much of what you were able to contribute and make his life better, and also extend his life. And I know it wore you out at times, but you soldiered on. It was great. First, I want to say I love Pete Vogt. He was a hell of a man. And I miss him terribly. We had 60 years together. There were not many months we didn't go by that we didn't spend time with each other. But he taught me a lot. And for me, that was the greatest honor he gave me, was to make sure that I knew he was a wonderful human being. So, in preparation for this, I asked Hank and Ann to give me a little snippet of their childhood together. And ironically, both of them ended up with the same snippet without collusion. And that was their road trips they had going from Air Force Base to Air Force Base. Can you imagine, in the 50s, this kind of broken down two-door Studebaker, no air conditioning, Martha Pearl and George in the front, three whiny kids in the back, and a pooch, and all of them wanted to hang their head out the door and let the wind blow through their lips and cause all kinds of audible noise. I think we all did some of those things. Pete, however, he would be singing Elvis Presley tunes or Bob Dylan tunes. And then when they would get to the hotel or where they were living, he would pull out a broom and pretend that he was playing a guitar. So he was a comic in the family. And rarely did George and Martha Pearl turn him off. He just kept everybody amused, always joking, and we know he was a jokester at heart. So I first met Pete when he came to University of South Florida. He was in his junior year, and I was in my sophomore year, and we were thrown together at a different and new dormitory. And all that was fine, except Pete and I had different ideals about college life. Pete knew he was going to a new university just like when he knew he was going to Oak Ridge High School. There wasn't a lot of tradition there, a lot of amalgamation of kids all over, and particularly USF was a commuter school as much as it was a transitional school for incoming people that wanted to stay there. So it was that kind of thing, and so I took it upon myself to teach Pete the university setting and the largeness of it because I'd already been there. And he actually was living with me on a fraternal floor, and a lot of my fraternity brothers were there. But Pete and I eventually became so close and so together that they started calling Pete my little brother because he was acting like he was one of the fraternal people, but he was a damn independent. And we knew that was going to be the basis for the rest of his life. In any event, Pete and I got to enjoy so much of each other, and Pete was going off to Germany. I was traveling around the Southeast trying to start my own medical equipment business, so I ended up back in Orlando because that was the center of the state for my business. And lo and behold, I go find Pete Vogt, and he's in real estate, and I said, well, hell, I need a house. My family needs a house. Well, we can do that for you. So I bought house number 1, house number 2, house number 3, all in the course of about 7 or 8 years, all in the Conway area. And then, you know, Pete sold me all of those. And then I bought 2 buildings for my business as I expanded. Pete sold me those. And I'm sure that story resonates with many of you in here because he was your resident real estate guy. Pete also had a hell of a network of resources. He had CPAs and attorneys and tradesmen and tour guides and just a wealth of resources of people that I incorporated into my business world, and my employees who lived in the same area, they started using all these people. It was just like the network of Pete just took a life of its own. I knew that Pete was a consummate, intrepid explorer. He really wanted to experience life. And frankly, I channeled myself through him on a lot of his trips, and therefore I ended up doing a lot of trips myself. And Pete was always searching for somebody else that could go with him on a trip and try and find the world and experience it. And eventually he found that in a Buzz Donahue. Some of you know Buzz or know of his world. You travel with him. I'm sure it brings up memories of fun and craziness. But Buzz was also one of those that didn't already have his tour group together. Sometimes it was the adventure within the adventure with Buzz. And as much as he promoted where you were going to go and how you were going to get there, some of those details weren't yet figured out. So Pete and Buzz, they complimented each other, because once Buzz went off and did his detail stuff, Pete would wander down the pathways, and already, I remember this in Cuba, he wandered around to a courtyard. He was about 6 or 8 blocks away from the rest of the people, and he decided he was going to go play checkers with the dudes down at the courtyard. And he was talking this robust Spanish language and trying to figure out how to fix Castro's world. And finally, somebody finds him and brings him back to the fold. But Pete was like that. He was a wandering soul. God bless him for all that. But I just appreciate so much of his willingness to go it alone. And I think, to Marcel Proust, he experienced a lot of his life and lived a full one. And I'm appreciative of being here to talk about that. Thank you.
I'm going to pick up where Woody left off. I think most of mine has to do with humor and traveling. Over the past years, Pete told me many of his humorous experiences throughout his life. I'm going to share some of those with you today. Pete loved humor and relished an opportunity to draw us into his world by using it. My name's John Page, and I met Pete on February 1980 on a road trip to visit Mayan ruins in Mexico, Belize, and Guatemala. This is with Condor Adventures, which is Buzz Donahue. That's the same individual that put this trip together. Actually, this is probably one of his first trips, which was chaotic in some instances. This trip was the first over many years. They were all fun, they were inexpensive, and they were always exciting. And Pete was drawn to the thrill of all of that, as most of us were in those days. All right, besides our common interests, we had another connection. Pete was 2 days older than me. So we would sort of a celestial connection there. So we would get together on a yearly basis and celebrate our birthdays, either have lunch or sometimes have a party. We would also celebrate Veterans Day together along with a small group of veterans that we knew. And we would have that lunch for years at Little Saigon Restaurant, of all places, which was just, it was an accident that happened, but it was interesting. None the same, because several of them were Vietnam veterans. As we talked, as was told earlier, Pete was in the Army. He was in Stuttgart, Germany. He was a second lieutenant, and with his company, one of his duties was being the company paymaster, where he paid the troops at the end of every month. In an effort to build a rapport with his troops, after handing them their monthly paycheck, he would give them prophylactics for health purposes. Before the end of every month, he'd go to the PX and buy a gross of prophylactics. That's 144, right? Always at the same counter with the same little Filipino sales lady. Every time, month after month, he would do this. After several months, as usual, he went into the PX, walked up to the counter, asked the lady for a gross of prophylactics. The sales lady looked him in the eyes and in a low voice said, "You some man, Lieutenant, you some man." Okay, so and we've talked about Spanish. Pete was always wanted to improve his Spanish, spoken Spanish, and we would go to numero uno, and he was always talking in Spanish with the staff there and asking and ordering things off the menus all in Spanish. So he worked it as much as he could to improve his Spanish. Well, the same thing happened with French. My understanding was in early 1970, he was taking a French class, and he decided, well, you know, I want to be able to speak really good at it, so I'm going to go to a French-speaking city somewhere and converse with those people in maybe the hotel or wherever. So instead of going to Quebec or France, he goes to Haiti, of all places. So this is a story about his stay in a hotel in Haiti. He was giving a pointer as to what hotel to go to in a safe neighborhood, so he felt safe. So one morning he gets up early and decides to go for a walk and have breakfast. And they told him there was a restaurant right down the street. So he went out for a walk and noticed two guys coming out of an open door. So he said, that's got to be it. So he walked in and sat down at the table. And an old man came up to him, and Pete ordered breakfast from him. And the guy turned around and went in the back of the room. And Pete sat down and started looking around and noticed, well, there's family photographs, and there's toys on the floor, and there's a sofa. And he realized that, well, this guy's home he walked into. But interesting enough, his wife came out and brought him his breakfast. So he quickly ate and quietly left. Okay, in 1994, Pete and I decided we wanted to celebrate our 50th birthday and have a trip somewhere. So we had a friend by the name of Rick Gray who liked to travel as well, and so we sat down and planned out a trip. And so we decided to go look at Mayan ruins in Central America, starting in Guatemala, then Honduras, then El Salvador, then Nicaragua, and then to Costa Rica. This was all overland by some kind of rattle-trap buses, whatever we were going to find to travel in. We were not going to pay for air flights and stuff like that. So it's very ambitious. So we get to, eventually we get to Honduras. We visit a ruins in the western side of Honduras. And Pete knew a diplomat at the embassy in Tegucigalpa, which is the capital of Honduras. It's sort of in the middle of the country. So we jump on a bus and go to Tegucigalpa. We set up an appointment to meet with this guy. We have lunch. And then he asked us our itinerary. We told him our itinerary. He said, look, I suggest you not go to El Salvador or Nicaragua. Things are a little spicy down there, dicey down there. Why don't you just go on to Costa Rica? So we did. We got a hotel. We flew into San Jose, got a hotel, and registered, went in the elevator, went up to the 3rd or 4th floor, got our room. It was a room with 3 single beds. We walked in, we dropped our gear on these beds. Pete grabs a magazine and goes into the bathroom. And Rick and I are out there just trying to get our gear settled and taking it easy and talking and trying to plan out the rest of the day. There are not many of us who have had the experience of sitting on the toilet while an aftershock of an earthquake rattles through your hotel, which is exactly what happened. When Pete staggered out, he was white as a sheet, and we just started laughing. We had no idea that San Jose must have been the center of like the equator country, because they said every day they had an earthquake. And so, and that's true. And I looked it up in Wikipedia, and there's sometimes they have like 2 a day. They're small, like 3 on the Richter scale, 2 or 3, and then maybe once a year or once a month they'll have a big one. Never knew that. So in that instance, Pete had an out-of-body experience. And so I sat down and I wrote out what I thought enticed Pete to go to these developing countries. And obviously one of them was the noise and hubbub of living in the United States. These countries are generally very calm, and usually you're out in a jungle somewhere, so it's really peaceful. The low cost, there's no doubt about it, it does cost. It's very cheap to travel in that part of the world, although, and that was in those days, it's probably a little bit more expensive today. It's a primitive culture, warm and friendly people. The other interesting thing, it's a gold mine for archaeological ruins. They're everywhere down there, and they're finding new ruins every day. So we love that. It's a thrill also of exploring places less traveled. As we traveled in some of these remote places, nobody had been there since the archaeologists were there to uncover it. And so you'd go by years without anybody going to these ruins. It's kind of neat. And for the most part, it's safe. And in those days it was. But as Woody was saying, I think the real driving force was Pete's curiosity. Pete was a voracious reader, as was said earlier, philosophy, archaeology, nature, history. His interest would be sparked by what he read, and he would then take it to the next level, do more research, and then come up with an action plan to do something, go to wherever. An example is this. This is what Pete told me. Pete loved visiting Paris. It oozed with history. As Pete told me, the oldest continually functioning cafe in the world is Café Le Procope. It's in Paris. It opened in 1686 and it's still operating today. And my girlfriend and I, Nancy, walked by there 2 weeks ago and it was packed. Same restaurant. Pretty amazing. Napoleon ate there, as well as Voltaire, Balzac, Victor Hugo, Marie Antoinette, Benjamin Franklin, and countless others of that same stature. Pete told me that he sat in the same chair at the same table where Napoleon had his coffee and ate his meals. That blows your mind. And to hear Pete tell it, he got really emotional about it. It's really important to him. He felt part of history. Okay, Pete was a great travel partner, a superb raconteur, and he could tell a hilarious joke that was funny even after the 4th or 5th time, years later. I'm not sure what Marty would have to say about that. He enjoyed living life and conversing with interesting people. He deeply believed in civil rights, and he was a dedicated patriot and a fierce advocate for democracy. Pete was my close friend, and I miss him dearly. Thank you.
What is black and white and friendly all over? That was the description that Orlando used to describe itself. That was not the truth. Orlando in 1944 when Pete entered the world and when I entered Orlando, it's a different place. I'm going to ask you to forgive me. I am a black male, United States Army soldier, talk a little trash every once in a while, and Pete was my main man. Pete was my main man, and I'm going to share with you a few of our little secrets. Our little secrets talked about the myth of white supremacy. When you have people like Shaquille O'Neal, when I worked at the country club, I want you to understand, some of you young folk will not remember Deacon Jones, but I played football against Deacon Jones. And there was a little white man about this tall, and he specialized in, boy. What I want you to understand, I'm the first black legislator, and I apologize that I have to use myself as a first reference. But when I ran for the school board against Bill Barnes and lost, he had that little red school bus, and whatever else he had, I lost that election. Pete Vogt was right there with me. And so if you want to know why I love him so much, he was not a candy ass. In other words, that's the name that we use. I don't want to offend anybody, and if I do, I apologize, but I'm going to say what I'm going to say. You know, in the United States Army, I tried to jump out of an airplane. I was what you call vinegar and piss. You know, in other words, if you think you got it going on, you got it going on. So that was a part of my expression. And so when I met Pete here, the teacher strike in 1968, Dr. King's assassination in 1968, Pete was with me when we were down. And you know Pete can't cook that well, but we were down there trying to sell fish, cleaning up the fish. Pete was joined with the hip. So when finally I was elected, I became the first black legislator ever elected from Orange County. But the lesson that I want to leave with you with Pete, nobody travels this road by themselves. Nobody achieves anything by himself. Pete was by my side. Now, the other receding hairline fellow I'll refer to, the other person there with the receding hairline, you'll see him up here in a minute over there on the left. We were the big hair fellow then. Even I had some at that time. But what I want to leave you with today, as we celebrate the life of my main man, Pete, that was one name for him. The other name was Lieutenant Vogt. I made up for all the good times that Pete had as an officer. I was an E5 sergeant in the United States Army, and I made him regret it. Every time I saw him, I poked a little fun. No, I didn't poke a little fun at him. I poked a lot of fun at him for being an officer. He was an officer and a gentleman, but the ultimate thing that I guess I want to leave you with, the world that I saw in 1944 as a first grader in a segregated school. White men drove garbage trucks in Orlando. Black men didn't drive the garbage truck. Why is it I want to leave that with you? Whatever happened in Orange County today, where we have a black mayor and we have all sort of people, we have an integrated, we have a DEI society, whether people want to realize. And we question, you know, when Pete started going out with Marty, we questioned that a little bit because Pete was a yellow dog Democrat, just like I was. But we decided that Pete was right. And Marty earned all the accolades that we could give her. But what I want to leave you with about Pete is this. Pete was my friend, and I referred to him as Lieutenant Vogt, Lieutenant Vogt, Lieutenant Vogt. We have a beautiful nursing home that, in the segregated society at Orange Memorial, so many of the things that we take for granted, and I'm so happy that the grandson is here. I wanted you to hear me tell you what your grandfather did. He didn't just do headline. What he did for this black legislator and so many other, most of them Democrats, 99.9% of them are Democrats. But the world that we enjoy, where people are judged by their talent and their heart, not their skin color, where to go to the bathroom, Pete Vogt made that possible. Thank you, Lieutenant. Carry on, carry on. That is all. That is all.
I don't want to follow that at all. Alzo gives me a hard time because I was in the Marines and he thinks the Army's superior, but it's not true. And then we're in a place of worship today, and you're going to witness two witnesses. You're going to witness two miracles. Two former politicians are going to keep it under 5 minutes. Two miracles today you've seen performed, right? So in conclusion, let me say, you were always on my mind. If Pete was here, that's the song he would choose. That's the song he would choose. So it was wonderful. And Marty, it's hard to pay tribute to my friend Pete without first thanking Marty for the incredible devoted love and care she showed him throughout their marriage. And I had to parenthetically put in there an incredible sense of humor. Incredible sense of humor. She even laughed at Pete's jokes, so that it was over and over again, especially Marty through the last years of his illness. On behalf of all of Pete's friends, thank you, Marty. We're so sorry for the loss of your Pete. Pete and I have been friends since 1974, 50 years ago. In fact, Pete and Alzo both worked on my first campaign. Alzo had an afro, and I've got a picture of that someplace, which I'm gonna publish. But Pete didn't. Notwithstanding the Rastafarian look he had in here, that's not Pete's real hair. I can assure you. We can assure you of that. He was a good man in every sense of the word. There was no pretense or posture with Pete. He was always himself, pure and deeply committed to his beliefs. I want to interject here, when talking to Pete, he would quote, from Churchill to Gladstone, Cervantes, he would go on and on. He was so brilliant. So my job when talking to Pete, over a glass of wine, I would look insightful, I would nod pensively, and every now and then I'd go, the point I was going to make. Pete didn't come to these beliefs lightly. He was one of the smartest guys I ever knew. Pete was a voracious reader, as has been said many times today, and highly intelligent. And if he believed in a candidate or cause, as Alzo pointed out, he worked very hard to advance those individuals or those causes. Pete wasn't the guy getting the attention. He was always the guy doing the work, true to his convictions, walking the talk. Pete had a great sense of humor, which we've already evidenced today, except my wife would never let me tell a story about somebody buying 144 Trojans. So the woman selling the Trojan said, "You're a Trojan?" He said, "What was that again?" You sell man, okay. Now in conclusion, okay. He was quick-witted and sometimes, I know you'll be shocked by this, a bit sarcastic. I always enjoyed our lunches where we tried to solve the problems of the world and always included some sarcastic humor. I'm going to miss my lifelong friend, especially treasure the visits I had with him in the past few months. Pete's life was a life well lived. Again, Marty, our deepest condolences and gratitude for the way you love Pete. Thank you.
We understand that there may be others here who have wonderful stories to share about Pete, and you will have that opportunity during the reception next door in Gore Hall.
My name's Shannon Haney. I am the daughter-in-law of Pete. This was one of his favorite poems, and I just wanted to share it with everybody. It is The Lake Isle of Innisfree by William Butler Yeats. I will arise and go now and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin build there of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honeybee, and I live alone in a bee cloud laid. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the vales of the morning to where the cricket sings. There midnight's all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, and evening full of linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for always night and day I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore, While I stand on the roadway or on the pavement's gray, I hear it in the deep heart's core. Thank you.
You have heard lots of stories about Pete today. You've heard some of his favorite poems, some of his favorite music. Some of what you've heard maybe you were familiar with, and some was all new to you. So let us now take a moment and quietly reflect on the life of Pete. So we'll take a moment of silence and reflect on all you've heard and all you know of Pete. We have come toward the end of our time together, this time that was specifically dedicated to honoring, talking, and remembering Pete's life. And before the final reading, I want to let you know that Marty is very glad that you are here. Those who knew Pete well and loved him well, and those of you who knew him some, and want to make sure that you know that there's a reception next door and you are all invited. And of course, as I mentioned a little while ago, there will be a microphone there for more stories that you would, if you'd like to share. And we have come to share the loss we have felt in Pete's passing and some examples of the joy we carry from his life. This we have done. But before we extinguish this chalice, let us acknowledge that we cannot extinguish the love he showed to those who were a part of his life, or the memory of him, or the love that you carry forward. Many lives have absorbed so much light from Pete. Those lives will continue to reflect that light into the lives of the people in their lives, even those that haven't met yet. May we always be able to see the light as it is reflected in all that we do, and remember and smile knowing his light is shining from you too.